It was around 2003 or 2004 when this happened, and I was about 20 years old, tent camping in Arkansas with a couple of friends. And it was one of those quiet, middle of nowhere campgrounds, not many people around, and we had picked a spot a little deeper into the woods to get some privacy. The Blair Witch Project was still fresh on my mind back then, so every little noise in the woods already had me on edge. But I wasn't prepared for what happened that night. We had gone to bed sometime around midnight. I don't know what time it was exactly when I woke up, but it had to have been around 2 or 3 a.m. The only reason I woke up was because I heard something outside the tent. Fast, light footsteps, moving erratically. I thought maybe it was a raccoon or some other small animal, but then I heard crying. Not just crying, sobbing, and it was close. I froze, just listening. It sounded like a little kid running circles around our tent, crying and mumbling something that I couldn't make out. And at first, I thought maybe I was dreaming, but then one of my friends whispered, "Do you hear that?" Yeah, I heard it. We sat there, barely breathing, listening to this child stumbling around outside. And then, the zipper of the tent moved. Not by much, just a little tug, like tiny fingers trying to pull it open. That's when my stomach dropped. I whispered, "What the fuck do we do?" Nobody had an answer. My mind was racing. A kid, out here in the middle of the night, no parents, no other voices, just alone. I did not know what to think. The logical part of my brain was telling me some kid must have wandered away from their campsite. But the other part of me, the part that had seen too many horror movies, was telling me to stay put. Eventually, I worked up the nerve to unzip the tent, and there he was, a little boy, couldn't have been more than 3 years old, standing barefoot in the dirt, wearing nothing but a sagging diaper. His face was streaked with tears, his nose running, his whole body shaking. He looked up at me, his eyes wide and terrified. I stepped out of the tent and knelt down. "Hey buddy," I whispered, trying to keep my voice calm. "Where's your mom and dad?" He did not answer, just kept whimpering, "Mama, Mama," over and over again. I glanced around, but it was nothing but trees and darkness. No flashlights in the distance, no voices calling for him. My heart was hammering. This wasn't right. "What do we do?" one of my friends asked from inside the tent. I had no idea. We couldn't just start walking around the campground with someone else's kid in the middle of the night. The ranger's office was closed, and I wasn't about to walk into someone else's campsite unannounced. So we decided to call the cops. Figured that was the safest thing to do. Just as I pulled out my phone, I heard footsteps coming down the trail. A woman appeared out of the darkness, walking toward us like she had all the time in the world. She did not look frantic or relieved, just tired. She stopped a few feet away and looked down at the kid. "How did you get out?" The little boy immediately ran to her, still crying, saying, "Mama." She picked him up, barely acknowledging us. Then she muttered, "Thank you," turned around and walked away, disappearing back into the woods. And that was it. No explanation, no apology, nothing. Just thank you, and gone. I stood there for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. How the hell does a toddler get out of a tent or a camper in the middle of the night and wander into the woods? Why wasn't she more panicked, more grateful, more anything? We barely slept the rest of the night. The next morning, I half expected to hear people talking about a missing kid or some kind of commotion, but there was nothing, no mention of it. It was like it had never happened. To this day, I don't know what freaks me out more, the kid wandering around the woods alone, or the way his mother reacted when she found him. Either way, I'll never forget it. My girlfriend and I decided to go camping 5 hours from home for her birthday and our anniversary. Neither of us had ever been camping before, but it sounded like a fun getaway. A big storm had passed the day before, so we figured the campsite would be empty, which turned out to be true. The guy at the entrance even told us, "You're the only ones here this weekend." At the time, we thought that was awesome. Now, I think about it differently. The road to our site was long and narrow. Once we got closer, it was clear there was only one way in and one way out, meaning we'd have to back out if we wanted to leave. We unloaded our stuff, set up the tent, and decided to explore a bit before dark. The woods were silent. No birds, no rustling, just nothing. We walked a few miles and came across a cluster of old, white cabins. They were identical, same size, same design, same weirdly off-putting energy. No signs of life, no vehicles, just abandoned, but too clean to be completely neglected. Something about them felt off, so we turned back. Back at the campsite, we struggled to get a fire going since everything was still damp from the storm. Eventually, with the help of lighter fluid and Walmart fire logs, we managed a small flame and roasted some hot dogs and marshmallows. For a while, everything felt normal. The stars were out, the fire crackled, and we were just enjoying the peace and quiet. But then, night fully set in, and the darkness was absolute. My girlfriend, already a little on edge, asked if we could get into the tent. I agreed, put the fire out, and we climbed inside. We were lying there and talking when she suddenly put her hand over my mouth and whispered, "Do you hear that?" I listened. Footsteps, heavy ones, more than one set, moving slowly through the woods. And I whispered, "It's probably an animal." But before I could finish, we heard something worse. Low mumbling. It wasn't clear words, but it wasn't the sound of an animal. It was human. People were talking, but too low for us to understand. The footsteps and mumbling got closer. My girlfriend clutched my arm, terrified, and I wanted to rationalize it. Maybe park rangers, maybe other campers showed up last minute, but we were told we were the only ones here. And then, just outside the tent, silence. Nothing. No crunching leaves, no voices, just that dead silence again. We lay there for what felt like forever, just waiting. I wanted to unzip the tent and look, but the fear of seeing something, someone, was worse than not knowing. Finally, my girlfriend whispered, "We need to get to your car." The urgency in her voice made my stomach drop. I unzipped the tent as quietly as possible and peeked out. It was pitch black. I whispered for her to stay behind me. Then we sprinted. Every step felt like something was right behind us. We slammed the door shut, locked them, and just sat there panting. "What the fuck was that?" she kept repeating. "No one is out here. Who was that?" I did not know what to say. I kept scanning the area, but it was empty. After a few minutes, I made a decision. I'm grabbing our stuff, stay in the car. I jumped out, grabbed the ice chest first, and threw it in the back seat. Then I turned for the tent, and as I did, the footsteps started again. This time they weren't slow. They were moving toward me, fast. I did not think. I just ripped the tent from the ground, wrapped the tarp around it, and threw the whole thing into the trunk without even folding it. I sprinted back to the car, got in, and asked, "Do we have everything?" She nodded, and I floored it. But we were not out yet. The road split into 6 different directions, and we had no idea which way led to the exit. I cursed under my breath and picked one. Dead end. I reversed again, my heart pounding. Then, from the new angle, I spotted a sign hidden behind an overgrown bush, pointing to the main road out. As we took off, I glanced to the right, toward where our tent had just been. A single, small green light was glowing in the woods. Neither of us spoke the entire 5-hour drive home. We crashed on our parents' couch at 4 a.m. and never talked about it again. And I have not gone camping since. I was on a camping trip a few years ago, midweek, when the park is usually quieter. It was around 2 a.m. when I woke up needing to use the bathroom. Our trailer did not have one, so I had to walk to the comfort station. Our site was on a corner, and there was a short trail through the woods that led directly to the washrooms. It was quicker than going around the front, so I took it like I always did. It was dark, but the path was familiar. Halfway through, I heard a sound. It was faint, but close, like someone giggling right near my ear. I stopped, looked around, listened, but did not see anything. No rustling, no twigs snapping, nothing that would suggest an animal or another person. I told myself it was probably a raccoon, and kept walking, but my heart was already pounding a little faster. Then, just as I was about to step into the light from the washroom area, I heard a voice from deeper in the woods. A woman's voice. Just one word. "Hello." It was quiet but clear. My stomach dropped. It did not sound frantic or lost. Just weird. Like whoever said it was standing still, watching. I ran, full sprint. I wasn't even thinking, just moving. I tripped on something, slammed my knee into the ground, and tore my pant leg open. But I did not stop until I was inside the brightly lit comfort station. My shin was throbbing, and my hands were shaking. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I misheard something. Maybe it was a trick of the wind. A rational explanation was easier to deal with than the alternative. I took my time in the washroom, mostly to calm down. I decided I'd take the long way back, through the open road, under the streetlights, where I could see everything. No more shortcuts. As I left the building and started walking, I made sure to stay far away from the entrance to the woods. I was doing a good job of convincing myself it was nothing, until I passed by the start of the trail. Right as I was about to go past, I heard it again, a whisper this time. "Come back." It was right there, just inside the tree line. Not aggressive, not pleading, just an invitation. I did not look. I ran. I ran so fast I thought my lungs would explode. By the time I reached our trailer, I was gasping for air, shaking so hard I could barely get the door open. I did not sleep much that night. The next morning, I checked the woods in daylight, hoping to see a sign of someone camping nearby, but there was nothing. No tents, no footprints, no signs of anyone being out there. That was the last time I ever used the camp bathrooms at night alone. The next season, my family got a new trailer with an indoor bathroom. I was relieved. I never figured out what I heard that night, and honestly, I don't want to.